Okay. That's on H 2029 is on. Okay, Barbara Brody's here. We'll take her testimony, but I really need to hear from the drafters first. This is the $200,000 appropriation from the Ed Fund, which we didn't know about when we did the yield bill, and nobody told us it was coming. Just thought that might be nice if we knew.
Maybe
Yes.
your bloomer to do the referral for 300.
Oh, I just, for this bill, no.
Or this,
I think Bruce's gonna do it. Bruce.
well,
I don't care.
whoever does, it's written.
I'll give him the
It's
number.
written.
Okay. First, we have to do it. So Michael, let's go over what we've got.
Okay, you should have either on your website or in front of you, the draft number 1.1, each one's 58 with a May 6th date and a 1:31 PM timestamp. You proposed 3 instances of amendment. In the first instance of amendment, this is where you strike what was referred to as the escalator, the automatic increase of the bottle deposit if the redemption rate for a particular category was not met for 2 consecutive years. That escalator clause used to be in subsection C of section 1534. That is struck, and what is replaced is that there is already a current report in 1534B on the current beverage container redemption rate for the 3 categories: liquor, finance beverages, and all other. What is being added here is the subdivision 2. This goes back to the original language of the bill, that each annual report submitted under subdivision 1 shall include a recommendation of whether the beverage container deposit for any of the 3 beverage categories should be increased to improve redemption of that category. So it's back to what A&R had requested, a recommendation and not an automatic increase, because of concerns that the redemption rate won't be met in the first couple of years of the expansion, because traditionally that's how it has worked in other states. Should I move on?
Yeah.
Second instance of amendment is the amendments to the systems analysis that I believe Senator Brock originally requested. So there is already a systems analysis in the bill that A&R was going to conduct on their own, but in this version of the language on page 2, lines 7 through 9, A&R is going to contract with an independent third-party consultant to conduct the systems analysis of the efficacy and cost of Vermont's beverage container redemption system. So subdivision 1 there, the total system cost is in the existing bill. Subdivision 2 is new per Senator Brock's amendment to include the cost to consumers of complying with an expanded beverage container redemption system, including transportation costs, compliance costs, carbon impact, and externalities such as lost time. Subdivision 3 is largely within the bill as it exists right now, but there is new language being added on lines 19 to 21. So in addition to the impacts of the expanded beverage containers system on the recycling system, the analysis will look to the cost to solid waste entities of an expanded beverage container system, including lost revenues from the sale of recyclable materials. There had been a kind of a targeted edit on Friday that had previously said the cost to municipal solid waste entities, but A&R asked that that be struck municipal. Then on page 3, and still in subdivision 3, you wanted on lines 3 and 4 an estimate of the impacts on tipping fees or solid waste fees at each material recovery facility or solid waste transfer station. So the solid waste fees or solid waste transfer station were added. And then the only other new language in this systems analysis is on page 4. It is basically the report date and the committees to which A&R shall submit the report. So on or before January 15, 2025, A&R submits.
And this is I've got 2026,
You have 2026?
section 7A.
No, we're looking at eight.
Okay,
We're line
I'm
three.
ahead of you, all right,
Yeah.
sorry.
And they submit the report to Environment and Energy and Natural Resources and Energy. And then in the third instance of amendment, this is the checked back chair that you were looking for status report of the system prior to expansion. So on or before January 15th, Secretary of Natural Resources submits to the Natural Resources and Energy and Finance and the House Committees on Environment and Energy and on Ways and Means, the status report of the stage recycling system prior to expansion. The report includes a summary of the operation of ANR's approved stewardship plan since May 1, 2025 by the PRO, identification of points of redemption under the existing plan, including assessment of whether the existing points allow for convenient and reasonable access of all Vermonters to redemption, assessment of whether the existing points of redemption are suitable for redemption by all Vermonters under the planned expansion, and any recommendations to improve the convenience of redemption prior to expansion. And then last, a summary of the infrastructure in the state other than the points of redemption available for the management and processing of beverage containers and assessment of whether additional infrastructure is needed prior to the expansion of the beverage container redemption system.
Committee, questions? I think that covers most of what we talked about. You bet. I'm not hearing questions, so
Now,
it's time.
yeah, so I would, thank the committee and everyone that participated for helpful changes. Especially the making more explicit where we're at in 2 years and have we made the changes to the vegetation system that we hope we will be making. So with that, I would move that we amend H-158 with draft 1.1 dated 5/6/23. Sheet the secretary is the clerk. So to move to amend, 1.1 dated 5/6/2023 and 1:31 p.m.
Senator Bray has moved that we amend H 158 with draft 1.1. And there are three instances of amendment. Any further discussion? Questions? Okay, if not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. I'm seeing that as 7-0-0. Senator Bray, would you like to report that?
Be my pleasure.
Okay.
And should we report the bill favorably?
Oh, yes, let's report the bill favorably as amended.
One more throw.
Thank you.
Who would Senate Finance report the bill as amended favorably?
Senator Bray has moved that we report the bill favorably. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
No.
I've got 2 no's, so that one is 5-2-0. Okay. So you're still
Happy to
reporting,
report the bill.
okay, all right, we are out. Thank you. Okay, and we are not gonna, is Barbara, where's my agenda? Brody, is she online? Is she? Okay, can you tell her well, no, she's here, maybe we'll hear from her. Okay. Vermont Drive and Traffic Safety Education. I'm just trying to handle I think it is very bad form to make an appropriation from the ed fund after the yields have been set without ever giving the committee jurisdiction that heads up that it's coming. And there apparently is some question about the appropriateness of this, which I guess came up in approves, but they did vote it out. So I'm just trying, I've asked to pass it over on the floor so we could get a chance to just find out what it is. So Barbara Brody is here, and Barbara, welcome to Senate Finance. You are our first witness on this. So we're hitting it cold. I understand there's 400 and some thousand, there's money somewhere in the budget to buy a car or cars.
Right. So I have been working with DCF on the foster teen. We have about 700 foster teens across the state.
Okay,
Many of them have dropped out of school.
volume up a little bit.
I'm sorry?
We're gonna try.
Because there's some issues with CGC.
Oh, good.
I think if you
Is that max?
Okay, try that.
do it like on the touch screen, I don't. That should do it.
Okay, okay. We've got everything turned up as loud as possible. If we all duck, it means when you speak, our ears hurt.
Thank you.
Okay, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. First of all, my name's Barbara Brody, and I'm the executive director of the Vermont Driver and Traffic Safety Association. I've also been a driver's education teacher for over 40 years, and at one time a school administrator. Right now, I work with Youth Spectrum in Burlington in their foster teen program. I was at a meeting and Amanda Churchill, who was in charge of the foster program for the state of Vermont from DCF, said that we have over 700 foster teens, and many of them, if not all of them, drop out of school. And because they drop out of school, they're not allowed to take driver's ed in the school because the school insurance on the car doesn't provide insurance for kids who dropped out. So I worked on so when I was after this meeting, I said, we got to fix this. So I met with some driver's ed teachers and with Youth Spectrum on North Street in Burlington. And we decided to do a pilot program, which we're now in our third year. I start that program again June 5th, to work with the foster teens to get them the classroom and also the in-car. And in Burlington, because we have commercial schools, I work with Joe Barch and his driving school, and he teaches the driving section, and I teach the classroom. But in many parts of the state, there isn't teachers. The teachers that we have available are the school teachers in the schools, and because the students are dropped out of school, they're not allowed to use the school car. So I work with some legislatures to say this is a one-time deal to be able to purchase a car, and I'll work with dealerships to try to get this car as low as possible as far as the finance. As you know, at one time, school districts used to get cars free of charge. There is no one that does that anymore in the state, no dealership in the state. Most of the dealerships are charging around $400 and something a month. And what schools have done is they've purchased their car. And it's a one-time purchase, the school budget goes through, and then they keep the car for 5 years and use it and trade it in. So I thought, and they get the state fleet insurance through AOE. So I thought, well, why don't we do that same kind of thing with DCF, and it will go to county, and it would be insured by the state, like AOE cars are insured, the school cars are insured, and the teachers would be certified like I am through DMV as well as AOE, and have the car for like 8 weeks because we want to keep the national standards of having the driving time at least 6 weeks so students learn over time. Now, we're going to use the pilot program because at Youth Spectrum, they hired a person who teaches, who practice drives with these kids because they still need their 40 hours. And they have somebody on staff who got trained by me about what is needed to be done. And other places, we're going to have that same thing where people will be trained and they can do their 40 hours, because a lot of these students, my first students, every single one of them lived in the homeless shelter on North Avenue in Burlington. So we know the foster students are either living in subsidized apartments or in group homes or in homeless shelters. Those are the three choices they have, and we will need to help get them
Okay.
practice
Don't
time.
have any foster children living with foster families?
There may be in Burlington, that's not the case. But in other places, that is the case, and therefore they could practice drive.
Okay, but I'm just getting my head around, you
Yeah.
have the majority of foster children, which means they are wards of the state,
Correct.
living in homeless shelters.
Well, in Burlington, they were. Some of them are their own apartments. So the students that I have starting June 5th, they have subsidized apartments that they live in. And the deal is, they have jobs, but outside of Burlington, if you have a job outside of Burlington, you can't get there. The bus system does within, but not without. And so that's why we are training them to get driver's ed. They get their license. And in Burlington, Good News Garage has a great deal for them to get a car as long as they have a job. And we're going to take that pilot and try to do that in other states. So I have some driver ed students or commercial schools that are willing to work with DCF and get the foster care system. But I have other teachers who only use their school car. And so we want to have this car available to bring to, like, Lamoille County. We have the teacher all set up. We have a place all set up, but we don't have a car. So we want to make sure this car would go from county to county for at least 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, I'm getting the car. And I've been told that money for the car is in the budget. I'm not understanding what the $200,000 from the.
Okay, so that's a separate program. A lot of legislatures got calls from their constituents that driver's education is not available. And in the school system, you really have to be a junior or a senior to get driver's ed. There's each school, they ended up eliminating driver ed teachers a few years back, like Essex High School, which graduates the most students at, I think, 380 kids a semester. They went from 3 teachers to 1. Well, you can only teach about 90 kids a year. And so that meant a lot of students never got driver's ed, and they had to go to commercial schools. Commercial school charges about $900 a student. Now in Essex, some of those parents can pay for that. Some of those parents can't, but in most parts of the state, most parents can't pay $900 for the class. So this $200,000 is to subsidize, make a pilot program, and they have to get, I don't know where they're getting the teachers, but they have to find the teachers and to provide driver's education. They want to do it quicker. And the association, we want to stay with the state and national standards that say no driving class can be done less than 6 weeks. That's an AUE and a DMV standard. And that's because we found out through education and research that you need to learn over time and develop habits. And you can't do that if you get all your lessons done in 1 week. So we like that over time.
More of a comment, I just want to say in transportation, we took testimony on this and I fully support it. There is a shortage of not DMV, but driver's ed teachers out there. And so what's happening is more and more kids are either not taking the course and then entering the roads when they turn 18 without ever having taken formal teaching.
Okay.
And then Senate Ed went last year too, which I fully support this. It's very, very much needed in the state.
Right. And Senator,
I'm trying to hear what it is, but what is the $200,000 being used for? Is it subsidizing schools to pay, or is it paying private driving schools?
Well, it's going to be finding staff. It's going to be the cost of the vehicle. Like I said, if they
Cost
rent,
of the vehicle is covered somewhere else.
well, it's not in the sense that the schools are charged about $450 a month to rent a vehicle. And so if they have more students, they're going to need another car in their school to be able to have more kids take this course and more driving. You know, we want to make sure they don't, the original bill had these kids getting 2 hours a day and able to finish driver's ed in a week. And we're not against that. We need to have distribution of learning over time so they can develop good habits and make it in their long-term memory.
Okay, the bell is ringing us to go up to the floor, but thank you. We're gonna just take a look at this. I'm still, because I know schools have always said driver's ed was an unfunded mandate, and they've never liked it. And I know they've been under a lot of pressure to keep their tax rates down. But this sounds like we're taking money out of the ed fund and subsidizing some schools to keep their tax rates down.
Well, I think we're subsidizing the schools that need extra teachers and extra.
Yes, but the schools could hire those extra teachers and put the cost on the local property tax.
They could.
Yes,
And
and they
some
are.
schools do that.
So now, that's right. So now we are going to reward schools that haven't done that. And that gets to an equity kind of, if we're
I
going
agree.
to put for one school, then
Right.
it may be that the state is going to be assuming the cost of driver's ed. And that's a somewhat larger discussion.
Right. And Senator Cummings, so the foster car is very different than the other.
Yes, the foster car isn't coming out of the ed fund, so we're not touching that.
Okay,
It's
great.
trying to figure out what this commitment might do to the ed fund, because I don't think we can subsidize driver's ed in a couple schools. We'd be
Right.
crazy to think
Right.
that every school wasn't gonna come in and say, you need to subsidize driver's ed.
Me too.
Well, right. I mean, the association is very committed in figuring out how to get more students through driver's education. We just want to make sure it's done with the national and state standards intact.
Okay, and I don't think anybody wants us putting kids on the road that don't drive to nationals.
And the senator talked about the 18-year-olds who, I mean, a lot of the 18-year-olds are saying, I don't want to take driver's ed because at 18 I can get a license without driver's ed, and they became the leading cause of death and injuries now and violations. And the 18 to 24-year-olds, they're way above everybody
You don't
else.
have to be driver's ed, but you do have to pass a written and a road
Yep.
test.
Yeah, but Senator Cummings, the Vermont written enroll test is one of the easiest in the country.
Having taken them in 2 or 3 other states, I will have to agree with you.
So unless we want to increase that ability of what you need to do for a road test and a written test, we then need to make sure that the students who are going through driver's ed are following the national and state standards.
Okay, we have to get upstairs. The
Thank you very much for your
celebration-
time.
Okay, thank you for your time. Okay, committee, bottle bill is out. This one is starting to sound a little, yeah.
We definitely need more driver's ed, but I hear your point on subsidizing schools that invest money.
Yeah, we do
That
need more
policy.
driver's ed, but traditionally, individual schools, that's been part of the education curriculum. If we're going to fund it in some schools, then we need to make the commitment, we will have universal driver's ed along with universal meals.